Okay, we're now going to look at solving these two inequalities. They're both tricky for various reasons. It's mainly to do with the fact that this inequality here has got minus 2x in. That's the first time that we've put an inequality of that nature up. So what we've got to do, we've basically got two techniques to be able to deal with this minus 2x. And this is where inequalities are slightly different to solving equations. The first technique that I'm going to show you is probably my preferred technique, which is to actually make that negative 2x positive. And the way I'm going to do it is if I add 2x to both sides of the inequality, that minus 2x will disappear from this side, but will suddenly reappear over here because I've added 2x to both sides of that inequality. Now I've done that, I've dealt with it being negative by making it positive, and I'm now just going to rearrange the inequality from this particular stage. So what have I got to get rid of? Well, the 2 here is the thing that's out of the way this time. I'm trying to remove the 10 and the plus 2. How do I get rid of the 10? I take 10 off both sides. When I take 10 off both sides, 2 minus 10 is minus 8. It's greater than or equal to, and I've got the 2x still here. So we're now going to try and remove the 2. Notice the negative 8 is out of the way already, so we're now trying to remove times by 2. And the way we remove multiply by 2 is to divide both sides of the inequality by 2. So I'm now taking this minus 8, negative 8, and dividing it by 2. Negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Now, what you must do now, though, is read your inequality sign correctly. Because we place the x's on this side, it's important that you read the inequality from the side that you have got the x on. So we're reading the inequality from this side, moving in this direction. So we're looking at x. Notice now we're reading it this way, it's saying it's less than or equal to negative 4. So to finish the question off, we'll write that the proper way round. X is less than or equal to negative 4. Now what I'm going to do is show you another way of doing that. And this other way doesn't involve making that minus 2x become plus 2x. It just deals with moving the 2 and the minus 2. So if we just have a look here now, I'm going to start with the same question. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm saying that 10 is out the way. It's on the other side of the variable that I'm trying to solve the inequality for. So I've got to remove this 2 and I've got to remove this negative 2. The way to remove this 2 is because it's loose, it's plus 2. So I'm going to take 2 off this left-hand side, I'm going to take 2 off this right-hand side. Notice I've still got negative 2x on this side, greater than or equal to 10, take away 2 is 8. Now, there's a little rule that you've got to remember when solving inequalities if you do it this way. And that basically is, if you ever divide by a negative number, or times by a negative number on the left-hand side, then the inequality sign must change round. So let's notice here, I'm going to try and get x on its own, so the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to divide by negative 2. If I divide by negative 2, the only difference to solving equations than solving inequalities is you must change that inequality sign round. It changes to be the complete opposite. It's reading greater than or equal to. It now changes to less than or equal to. And 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. Answers both exactly the same, no different. I personally prefer this technique by making it positive. We're about to have a look at solving this one, okay? So when we look at solving this one, I'll show you, again, the 2 possible ways of doing it and the one which I probably would prefer. So our task is trying to get the x's all on one side. Remember, we place them on the side that has the most. This has 3x, this has negative 7x, and a lot of people would expect this one to have more x's than this one. That's not the case. If you imagine a number line, this is positive 3, this is negative 7, so this side clearly has more x's than this side. So what have we got to do? The first stage is to remove this minus 7x and bring it onto the other side to join the 3x. Remember how we remove minus 7x? It isn't to take 7x off, because if I took 7x off there, I'd end up on minus 14x. It's to add 7x. So I add 7x to this side, 7x to this side, so 3x plus 7x is 10x, plus 4 less than or equal to 14. Notice that minus 7x has disappeared because I've added 7x to both sides of this inequality. I've now got to remove the plus 4 and the times by 10. How do I get rid of positive 4? I take 4 off. If I take 4 off the 14, I end up with 10. And then finally, how do I get rid of times by 10? The opposite to multiplying by 10 is to divide by 10. So I end up with x less than or equal to 1. I'm just going to show you what would have happened if I had brought them all over onto this side. Okay, so if we just write the question out again, we've got 3x plus 4 less than or equal to 14 minus 7x. This is plus 3x. If I brought it onto that side, it would turn into minus 3x. So what would I have? Minus 7x minus 3x is minus 10x. Right, what have I got to remove? Well, that's out of the way already. I've got the 14 to remove, I've got the negative 10 to remove. Which one do I remove first? The 14. How do I remove 14? I take 14 away from 4, which leaves me a final answer of minus 10. Finally, I'm now ready to get rid of that negative 10. Notice it's times by the x, so the way I get rid of negative 10 is to divide by 10. Okay, but not just 10, it's got to be negative 10. Stop there for 1 second and say to yourself, hang on, if I divide by a negative number, the inequality sign must change round. So, when I've divided by negative 10, I get an answer of 1. That inequality sign must change round, and I've got that. Okay, so we've divided by negative 10. So we've divided by negative 10, the inequality sign changes. Negative 10 divided by negative 10 is 1. And then don't forget, because the variable is on this side, we read the inequality sign from the letter. So that is x is less than or equal to 1, which is what we have over here. So either technique, even though I personally prefer the technique of trying to make sure you put the x's on the side that's got the most, which will then make it positive, so you don't have to remember the rule about dividing or timesing by a negative sign changes the inequality sign.